you guys doing with occupancy?
We are, it obviously came well down.
Yep.
Where March, we started to see the beginning of a rebound, and April is off to a good start for the first third of the month.
Yeah, I've got sort of the senses, and just kind of reading through and talking to people, it sounds like things are really picking up. So that's and of course getting your HR human capital stuff right is a big part of that. So
no question. I mean, because a huge part of attracting folks when they come on a visit to the community is making sure that there's vibrancy and it feels good. And that's where we think our team's really excelling. So
cool.
Cautiously optimistic that we're at the beginning of this rebound.
Yeah. So how are you changing?
It's over 90% still, though. I mean, we still
What's that?
In great shape.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think we're going to see a big bifurcation. I think we're going to see some communities who really, and organizations that really struggle. I mean, you're watching the news, so you know there are already a bunch of there's been a pretty fair amount of public shuffling of properties, and I suspect there's more that we haven't really hit the press. And I think the REITs have been, and the capital providers in general have been pretty tolerant, but I suspect that tolerance is going to kind of start going like this as the rebound, and the people who aren't coming back are not going to do well. So, getting your staff in position is the right place to be.
Yeah,
sure.
Great.
So.
Well, Steve, I think when I sent you the email, I said wasn't sure who was going to be.
Yep.
Us, I'm Doug Dollenberg, as we met, and this is Andrea Griesmar, who's our one of our senior vice presidents.
Cool.
So,
and it's just the two of you?
Yes.
Cool. Well, I've actually got recording going. I'd love to be able to use the video, a piece, or at least a piece of the video as we talk about this, but I want to make sure that's okay first. Otherwise, I'll just use it to write with if you're not comfortable with that. So either way is fine.
I think
we're fine.
I think, that's the only thing that was, don't record or don't use this part. I was just
of course, yeah.
That we're non-masked, but vaccinated, we're fine.
Well, I think you're far enough apart, and I assume you guys are all vaccinated anyway, right?
We are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So, and it's the mask thing, of course, is always is always really super hard because it's because there's so many politics involved, and so you've got to be super sensitive to that. So so let me do a little intro. Steve Moran here with Senior Living Foresight. And this is like one of those stories I love to do, right? So I am talking to Doug Dollenberg with Brightview, and I'm sorry,
Andrea Griesmar.
Andrea, and you woke up to something. I mean, I know you actually knew this was coming in advance, but the public announcement was that you are on the Forbes 100 Forbes Great Places to Work, top 100 places to work in the United States?
Correct.
Is that right?
No,
and what number are you?
It's Fortune, not Forbes.
Yeah.
Fortune, I'm sorry. And what number are you?
We like to go with top 100, Steve.
Okay.
It's number 92.
You know what?
We are just thrilled to be on the list. It's huge.
So there's I was listening to I think it was a Malcolm Gladwell podcast a few months ago where he was talking about the silver medal winners in the Olympics, and they are actually way less happier than the bronze medalists, because the bronze medalists mostly can't believe they made it in the top three. And the silvers are all mad that they didn't make the gold. And I think that's a really, really good lesson, when they should be absolutely, of course, delighted that you're there. And so the fact that you're on that, I mean, 100 is a pretty small number across the nation, around the world, right? So
for context, we realize that there's over 10 million companies in America, and we're one of the top 100. So we're pretty excited about that.
yeah, so what I really want to do is, so first off, I congratulations. Second, I believe that everybody ought to strive to be on that 100. I sort of have this big dream, right, that maybe we could have the top 100 would all be senior living. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would.
Probably won't happen, but I can dream. So I'd like to actually have you talk a little bit about what you did to get there. I mean, that's not just, you didn't buy your way there. You actually had to do things in your organization to make that happen. So love to just hear what you did.
Steve, I think if you talk about what it took to get here, I think you have to go all the way back to when Brightview was founded in the 90s. And that original business plan had that Brightview will be a great place to work. And in turn, that'll make Brightview a great place to live. And the financials will just work its way out. And it's important to go back to that because that's what our organization has been focused on for our entire existence, about making sure that we are associate focused, that we're creating an engaged team, a satisfying work environment, because we believe that's just absolutely critical to success for a fun, engaging, enjoyable workplace, and ultimately a successful business.
So actually, I want to go back and do a little bit. So tell us where you're based, how many communities, and how many team members you have.
Sure. Brightview Senior Living, out of Baltimore, Maryland. We have communities stretching from Virginia up to Massachusetts along the 95 corridor, 42 communities.
Perfect. And how many team members? Ballpark?
700.
Cool. And so if I came to you and I were a senior living leader and I said, man, I'm jealous. I want to be able to get into that top 100. Where would you tell me to start to get there?
An interesting perspective.
I think it's about listening to the team, engaging the team, empowering the team. And all of that starts with really, truly, genuinely caring about the associates and believing at our core. That's what Brightview does. We believe at our core that our associates are what makes us great. It's what makes Brightview special. We have our front line of over 4,000 associates. They're our primary touch points with our residents. And so they need to be engaged in and believing in everything that we do as an organization. It's our frontline team that brings joy and vibrancy, care and love to our residents. So our frontline team has to be happy, believing in what we do, and trusting us as a leadership team.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the things? Go ahead, Andrea.
See, just the first step in this process of being recognized in the top 100 started with being recognized as the top workplace in aging services. And that's entirely based on a survey of our associates, entirely. And that survey happened in the middle of the pandemic. We were asking people. So it's a pretty amazing testament to the trust that people placed in us, the way in which some of the actions and the ways in which we tried to take care of people and support people, how that resonated with everybody, not just at an executive level, but that message was loud and clear to people working in housekeeping or caregiving or dining or really accounting and IT and across the board. That message was making its way to everybody who filled out those surveys and shared such incredibly positive responses.
So it sounds like what you're telling me is you didn't set out to be on the top 100. What happened was you're on the top 100 because of business philosophy and operating excellence. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that makes it so gratifying. We didn't go after getting on the list. It was a strategic part of who we are as a company, and getting the external recognition is very gratifying. And knowing that our associates believe that we're a great place to work, that's very rewarding.
So many of the things that we did during COVID that were really looking at associates and their whole selves, not just what they did at work, but things like, just an example is like we had a food pantry. We knew that there were a lot of people who were impacted by things like a spouse losing a job, or having kids that might have been eating lunch at school but no longer at school, or picking up daycare expenses. Those kinds of things were really impacting people. We had a food pantry. We had different protections in place. Just a lot of different initiatives that I think sent a really strong message that this is not about the finances and the revenue or the financial impact of the company. It's about you. It's about how do we take care of people, and then that loyalty is repaid.
Just adding to some of the things Andrea said, there was free meals at work. There was premium pay, hiring additional associates to help out. We needed more staff. These things that we spent millions of dollars on PPE, which helped our team feel safe. It was really rewarding to hear a number of our associates have said, I felt safer at work than anywhere else because I knew that we were doing all the right things to keep our team and our residents safe.
I love that.
Team this morning that we had, one of the things we did was to have a executive director town hall that was just a free space to tell us what's going on. What do you need from us? What can we do? What can we share? And in one of those early meetings, they shared with us that there's just not enough bodies to go around. I mean, working in quarantine environment where the residents were not able to come out of their apartment was just a terribly inefficient way to operate the business. Enough bodies to do it. So based on that one phone call, in one day, we crafted a job for what we called a hospitality associate, which is basically everything but the kitchen sink. Whatever you need done, this is somebody who could do it. Crafted a job description, kind of conceptualized the role, built it out in our accounting system, built it out in our payroll system, and gave the executive directors the blessing to hire at your discretion what you need to run your business and support your teams. And, so that's just a good example that kind of it's putting our money where our mouth is, I guess. If we're here to support you, this is one of the ways that we did it.
And I love that. I mean, to me, the key message is do what you need to do to support the organization, support your residents, support your team is just so cool, because what I hear so often from people who are working in senior living communities is they've got this very rigid set of guidelines, and even if they're suffering, they're doing inadequate care. They have they've got these hard bumpers that they can't go outside of, and so it becomes frustrating for everybody, and they don't feel appreciated, and their teams don't feel appreciated. So, but so how do you balance that with, because the counter argument to this is going to be, well, if we just turn them loose to do that, we're not going to be able to even cover costs, let alone make money.
Yeah.
I think there's a very big difference between oversight and accountability versus free reign. We did give people the discretion to make good business decisions. They didn't have to come to us for permission to hire or to say, I need X number of hospitality associates. We trusted people to make good business decisions, but we also had, we were monitoring that and making sure that that people felt like they had the support that they needed, but that they were doing it in a responsible way. It's just that they didn't need our permission to run their business.
Okay.
I think it comes back to hiring. We have huge confidence in our executive directors. I think they're very gifted at balancing unbelievable care and compassion towards associates and residents with recognizing that this is a business that has financial obligations and fiduciary responsibility, and they balance those two. And we saw that happen during COVID. During COVID, it means that the financials suffered. There's no question, and we put a priority on people.
Did you? I always get nervous asking questions that you're going to hate right when I'm recording it, but we don't have to.
Right.
We don't. So did you find in giving this discretion that anybody abused that?
No.
No.
Not at all.
That to me is really the key question. Is I worry so much that so many leaders, and this is not just a senior living problem, that they operate from a position of distrust. And I keep hearing this term trust, and not even just in the words, but in everything you talk about is all about trust. And so I love that. And I guess the question I still, as somebody who's writing and trying to move the needle in the industry is there a way to help other operators, other leaders adopt that attitude of trust?
I would take it back to Doug's first comment, is that to trust people, you have to have good people. So if you hire bright, you hire bright people that are really capable of running business, and then you give them the freedom and to do it and the support that they need to do it well. I don't know why you wouldn't trust them. It's what they do best. Let them go do it. Let us do what we do best. Everybody's contributing to their highest and best use.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
Steve, to your question, did anybody abuse it? I completely agree with Andrea. Nobody abused it. Some people had questions, and they maybe wanted help or support in thinking through it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's another piece of the Brightview team. If they wanted to talk to somebody in regional leadership, they could. If they wanted to talk to somebody in the executive team, they could. We very much were of the mindset we're all in this together. And so we did see, appropriately so, some community teams wanted to talk about it, and what make the most sense. What is best practice? What are others doing? Can you help me think about this challenge? And that's a real strength at Brightview. We're very proud of the fact that our community teams of frontline plus directors, plus our regional leadership teams, plus our home office team, we all operate as one team. For us, we call that one Brightview, and that's a term that we use a lot, especially during the pandemic.
Yep. So you've got this, you don't sound like the kind of people who are going to rest on your laurels. So where do you go from here?
We actually talked about that when we shared the news with our team this morning. We talked about continuous improvement. And the reason that we do these surveys is so that we can get the validation that we're living up to our being a great place to work, and also so we can get feedback so we know how we keep getting better as an organization. And I think us focusing on what's the next area to raise the bar and being a great place to work, that's something that will always be in our business plan so that we keep getting better as a workplace.
Okay, one more question, and then I'm going to let you go. How do you hire great executive directors? Because I do hear, there's this underlying sense that if only I had better people working for me, my organization would be better. So you obviously accomplished that. How'd you do it?
I would answer that more broadly than how do we hire great executive directors, because you could have a fabulous executive director with a substandard team and that doesn't really work. I think we are incredibly disciplined around our recruiting process and our selection process. At the frontline level, we do group interviews that focus on nothing but our culture before we ever ask the first question about what credentials does someone have, and what certifications, and can they work the schedule, and about their experience. We don't want to be tempted with those things until we know that there's somebody that's going to really live our mission and live our values. So the first step is this, an interview around our core values. And if they make it past that, then we'll spend some time talking about the skills and experiences and those sorts of things. There's a lot of people involved in the interview process at an executive director level and at any director level. We want the candidates to see us through a lot of different lenses, and we want to see them through different lenses. So there are many, many people involved in the hiring of an executive director. It almost becomes a joke a little bit that, there's a lot of interviews. It takes place over a period of time, but that's really important to us. And ultimately what we end up with is a really strong team of people who are committed to what we do and have really committed to living our mission every day.
Cool. And do you pay scales, typical, atypical, don't want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think it's typical. We keep a close eye on it and looking at the marketplace and making sure that that we're paying people appropriately.
Okay. And I'm going to try one final. Do you have a story for me? I want a story about how, because of your values and your culture, what I'd really love, because of the nature of this conversation, I'd love to have something about how you changed the life of an associate, but I'd take either an associate or a resident if you've got something.
Yeah, we like to think about leadership at being at all levels of the organization, not just at the executive level of the organization, and trusting that every associate has the opportunity to be a leader among peers and influence others. And one really touching story is a medication assistant in New Jersey, been with us for a long, long time, who, kind of sensing that people were down, wrote a poem that she then delivered to all of her associates to lift spirits. And then that got picked up by some of the home office and shared with the whole company. But here's, this person didn't have by title a responsibility to be the leader, but she took that on and said, I can help my colleagues, my peers, my coworkers who are struggling here.
And it was a poem about how challenging COVID is and how we'll get through it as a team. And this was written a couple months into the pandemic, and it was very motivational to a lot of people.
That's cool. If you're willing and able, I'd love to have you share that as well.
I will reach out to her and make sure, but my guess is she will be delighted to share, and I would be happy to send that to you.
That's cool. Well, listen, thank you very much for the conversation. This is congratulations for that. I can hardly wait to do this next year and see that you've moved up to, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 10 or something like that.
There we go. Thank you, Steve. Well, Steve, just final thought. I mean, I think you've picked this up as we've talked, but we're so grateful for what our team has done and how they've embraced our values and who we are. And we really feel that this is our team's award. It's our team and our associates that made this happen. And that's why we're so proud.